friends. If you're new here, I'm Skylar, and today I'm wrapping up everything that I read in April. I read 9 books across 3,549 pages, which isn't the best reading month ever for me. I ended up falling into a little bit of a reading slump at the end, but I'm still happy with everything I read. So the first book that I finished in April was Some Kind of Happiness by Claire Legrand, which I buddy read with my friend Mare at Mare Reads, and we pretty much agreed on everything about the book. So make sure to check out her video where she reviews it. I'll put a link in the description. So Some Kind of Happiness is a middle grade about a little girl who goes to spend the summer with her grandparents that she has never known. So she's going through a difficult time in her life because her parents are splitting, and then she is being introduced to this new side of her family that she does not know. And on top of that, she has what she calls blue days, where she feels really down and heavy and sad and she doesn't know why. So to cope with her rough days, she creates something called the Everwood, which is basically like a fantastical, magical realism forest that she writes stories about. And then she starts to bond with her cousins as well as some neighborhood kids, and they all play in the Everwood together. I think it was successful at being kind of an allegory for her depression and anxiety that she's feeling, and I love Claire Legrand's writing as always. I even teared up a tiny bit at the end. I think like one tear went down my face, which is tough because I really am not a crier for books. It's easy for me to feel emotional over books, but it's not easy for me to cry over books. So overall, it was really great. I'm obviously not the target audience for a middle grade book, but I still thought it was absolutely wonderful. Okay, anyways, after that, I read Crave by Tracy Wolff. When it first came out, I saw the cover, and like everybody else, I was like, oh my goodness, that looks so much like Twilight. And it made me curious. I wasn't sure when I was going to get around to reading it, but I was curious about it, and then again, Mare was reading it, so I decided to just buddy read with her. So Crave is kind of a mix up of Twilight, Legacies, and Vampire Diaries. Maybe Vampire Academy? I haven't read Vampire Academy, so I can't say for sure though. So the story follows our protagonist Grace, whose parents have just died in a car accident, and she arrives in Alaska to live with her uncle and her cousin, where her uncle is the headmaster of a boarding school. And right away she meets mysterious Jackson. There are several mythical beings in this book, and it was rather long, but I still read it pretty quickly, so I think it is a quick read. It's definitely very, very similar to Twilight, and this book was just not for me, but I would definitely recommend it if you like legacies and boarding schools and vampire type stuff, and if you like stuff that is quick and easy to read. After that, I read Lavinia by Ursula K. Le Guin. I did tab a few pages, which is not super common for me. I'm not a big tabber. I've had this book recommended to me several times because I love Song of Achilles and Circe so much, and a lot of people said that this was kind of in the same vein as that. Also, Laura at Laura's Library Card sent this to me, so make sure to check her out. So Lavinia is a retelling of the Aeneid, which follows the hero Aeneas from the epic poem written by Virgil. In the Aeneid, Lavinia is the king's daughter who never speaks or has any kind of agency or thoughts of her own, but she is Aeneas's wife. So this takes place in ancient Italy before Rome is even a name in anyone's mind, before Rome is even a twinkle in anybody's eye. I had pretty big expectations for this because it sounds so good and it is so on brand for me to enjoy this. So of course, when you go into anything with really huge expectations, a lot of the time you're let down, but with this, I was not let down. I very much enjoyed it. So I really enjoyed it, and I really liked the writing. I also just love anything that has to do with ancient Troy, Italy, Rome, heroes, myths, all of that stuff. So it was totally right up my alley. What was really neat about it too is that the poet is kind of brought into the story that he wrote. So there's kind of these two converging timelines where Lavinia kind of communes with the poet and reflects on the choices he made to her story and kind of corrects him in some ways, saying, you know, actually, this is what happened. And I just thought it was really great. I would definitely recommend this. After that, I read We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal, and I absolutely loved it. I am a sucker for any kind of really beautiful writing, but this delivered on all fronts. The writing was beautiful, the story was compelling, the setting was neat, The characters were cool. And for those of you that love enemies to lovers, this is the book for you. She absolutely delivered on the enemies to lovers front. So the story follows Zafira, the huntress who disguises herself as a man and goes into the dangerous, cursed magical forest and hunts to feed people and keep everyone alive. And then the other point of view is Nasir, the Prince of Death, who is an assassin and a son of the Sultan who has orders to kill the huntress. So if you like books with quests, enemies to lovers, magical objects, this is a must read, and beautiful writing. All of it was so good. I'm really excited to pick up the sequel as well as another book that she's working on that will be released within the next couple of years, I think. Okay, after that I read the Star Wars original trilogy graphic novel. I go more in depth about my thoughts on this in my Star Wars video, so be sure to check that out. Of course, it sticks very close to the story. It's just fun to consume a story that you know and love so well through different formats. So I really enjoyed it, and it was definitely a quick read, and I thought the art was really nice. Okay, after that I read Transcendent Kingdom by Ya Jessie, and I was really excited to pick this one up because I was blown away by her debut novel Homegoing, and this one was also really good. I think that if you have read neither of her books, I would still suggest picking up Homegoing first because it was just mind-blowing, amazing. So Transcendent Kingdom is about a young woman named Gifty at Stanford who is researching neuroscience and neural circuits of depression and addiction through mice. And this book is very heart-wrenching. She is drawn to studying addiction and depression because her brother died of an overdose who got addicted to painkillers after an injury. So it really examines the intersection of faith and family and depression and loss. Yeah, I guess the intersection of faith and science. I also found it interesting because I took a couple of neuroscience classes in college. I've always been really fascinated by the brain. It was kind of cool to hear some of those same concepts come up that I hadn't heard since my neuroscience classes. But overall, this was a very moving and powerful book. If you are going to read anything by Ya Jessie so far, I would recommend getting a tissue box or two ready. And again, I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does in the future because I will definitely be picking up whatever she reads next. Okay, following that, I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which is an adult novel based around two characters who were best friends in college and end up discovering the secret to supernatural powers that they call extraordinary. It has a very comic book villain vibe, and it was very fun. Almost all of the characters are morally ambiguous or just downright bad, so if you like that, this is the book for you. It's kind of a fun, twisty read where I didn't always know what was coming at the next moment, which is always enjoyable, but I did enjoy it. I'm very curious about the rest of V.E. Schwab's work because I think this is technically the first V.E. Schwab book I've read, and I know that she is a BookTube favorite. So, okay, after that I read A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy by Alexandra Bracken, and again I went over this more in my Star Wars video, but really quickly to summarize, my interest was immediately piqued when I saw that Alexandra Bracken had written a Star Wars book licensed by Disney because I enjoyed lore by her and I'm curious about her other work, and it's just cool to see a contemporary YA author do Star Wars. And this delivered. Again, I obviously know how the story is going to go and what is going to happen, but I enjoyed it so much. I read part of it on ebook and part of it listening to an audiobook, but I especially recommend the audiobook. I think it might have been one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, especially if you're a fan of Star Wars. It was such a cool production. They had some of John Williams' scores and all kinds of voice actors and cool performances, and I like Alexandra Bracken's writing. I think she really captured it and did a great job. Okay, last but not least, I read The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I was really excited to pick it up. I had it pre-ordered for months and months because I really enjoyed From Blood and Ash, the first book in the series, and Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, the second book in the series. So this is the third and longest book in the series so far, and I believe she plans to publish several more after. So this book had a lot of setup for future plot points, I think. So there are a lot of conversations and world building and new information. I still really recommend the first and second book. I think that those two in particular are just really fun. Okay, that is it for today. Hopefully I get around to reading more next month. I am really looking forward to a lot of the buddy reads I have coming up, and I'm starting to get excited for summery, warm weather beach reads. Even though I know I will probably just be reading fantasy still every day. It's just who I am. Maybe I'll do like a series reading fantasy at the beach or fantasy beach reads. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and leave me a comment below about your favorite book in April or if you've read any of the books I mentioned, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!